This week we are going to introduce the crash course, which is a tool that Partners in Health provides to all their teams to kind of help us become more familiar with Partners in Health and their beginning and their mission and what they're really all about, and then also global health and a lot of the topics that we're going to delve into later with the help of Katie and Alexis as well. And then we're going to talk about our campaign against racism. One of the large points that Partners in Health is focusing on this year for their community building education as well as advocacy is really delving deeper into that systemic and institutionalized racism where the disparities really come out into the health field. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And so the first part we're going to do, there's a goal in the larger Partners in Health network where they'd like all of the team members to complete this crash course at one point throughout this semester. So the goal for established teams was to have it done by September. Since we're a newer team, it's okay if we don't necessarily get it. I mean, we obviously didn't get it done by September, but it's okay because we're newer and we're still getting set up. So I just sent a link in the chat, and I think it'd be cool to start it all together. It's kind of longer, so I recommend doing it in pieces for sure. I did do it all at once. It wasn't the best decision I've ever made, but I'm sure you guys have crammed before, so it's not bad, and it is really interesting. It's just longer. So we're going to start it together now. We'll work on it for probably 15 minutes because there's some videos and stuff, and then you guys can finish it on your own, and we will figure out a fun incentive to have once we finish it. So I'm going to click on the link here. So you guys can click on it on your screens, click on the link and do it on your screens, but I'm just gonna do it on my screen as well so that we can do it together, I guess. So I'll just put my email address, my first name, my last name. I am a member, so we are an established team now, so that's exciting. What team are you a member of? Ohio State, baby. Let's go. You can.
Anybody have any problem with the link? Or did everybody get it up okay? Good.
Wait, did you, Alexis?
What? Yeah.
I didn't say, did you have an issue or something? I didn't. Because I think it's it should be good.
Perfect.
Okay. We all know me and technology is not always cohesive. Okay. And I'll pause at the end of this page so we can get everybody up if they want to do it. So you can put Ohio State. There's only one of us, so they'll know. So then I am the team coordinator. You guys would put probably team member, and then Katie would be a fundraising lead, and Alexis would be our advocacy lead. And then, yeah, it's pretty simple there. So our team's assigned coach. This is something that you guys might not know. Her name is Annam, right here. She is from Rice University in Texas. She is just graduated and is applying to med schools right now. She's super awesome. So that's her name, Annam. And if you don't remember, you can just message any of us up here, or you can just put it in now. And then, oh my gosh, wait, you guys, we have a group version. Should we just do it together, or do you guys want to do it one by one? Okay, if you want to do it together, then comment in the chat. If you want to do it on your own, then say nothing, because that's what we're doing now. Okay, so
if you want them to finish it on their own, then maybe we should just do individual so that they can finish it on their own, so we don't have to do it for a long time, right now.
That's what I was thinking too. I just I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that there was a group option.
It doesn't take that long. It took me, I want to say no more than an hour and a half maybe to get the entire thing done. I just did it straight through. But if you just do 10 minutes a day, you'll be done with it in a week or so. So it really isn't that bad, and it's really cool. Like Julie said, there's some really cool stuff in there that will just make you understand Partners in Health more and make you more appreciative of the work that they're doing. So I think it's really awesome. Just having the opportunity to go through this, even though it sounds like a burden, it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. Yeah, I agree with everything. And you can see down here, it's only 8 pages. So I think Katie and Alexis both did it. We did it over the summer. So let's just do like the first 2 pages together. So I think that should be good. That way, again, you guys can do it on your own time. But so the main thing here is our coach is Annam. So then let's see. We'll do this page together. So what is Partners in Health? We strive to create a future in which every single person's right to quality healthcare is guaranteed. So, the right to health for everyone. Let's see. So we can watch this video together, and I should be sharing my sound. I'm gonna check actually. Really, I wasn't sharing my sound. Haha, technology can't get me. Okay, I'm gonna press the video now. I don't know if I've seen this. Can you guys hear it all right?
I don't know how I can describe that day. That day, I felt the world is over for me. I went to the hospital to register the pregnancy. They ordered me to do my routine tests. Later, the results came out. I was HIV positive. So I feel like I'm in a jail. Everything was tied up with me that day. Because some people think when you have HIV, it's a death sentence. They have sentenced you to death. If had it not been the intervention of PIH, maybe today I will not sit here to talk. You see, I will not even know you guys. You see, and I believe there is hope. They encouraged me. They said all is not lost. There is still life with HIV. So I started taking my medication until I gave birth. I was living with the virus. I gave birth to them. My husband is negative, my children are negative, but I'm positive. So I become an hero. I say, so you can use me as an example. Just take your medication. Because of the passion they showed me, the initial passion, the love, the care they showed me too, I don't want to keep it to myself. So that's motivate me. I decided to share it to my colleague. Because of PIH, I'm proud to say with a little salary, I've educated my child onto WASCA level. I've already made a difference because as I am here today, I'm a counselor for them, the newly diagnosed patients. I'm a brighter example to them. I use myself as an example. the reason and the benefit of taking medication. I think I'm living that average life which every Sierra Leonean can proud of. Before when they diagnosed me, I think I don't have future. But today I have future.
Okay, so before we like fill out the questions that, and also I don't want to take up too much more time because I know Alexis and Katie have some stuff planned for us, but any initial like reactions or thoughts about that video?
It made me really happy that like the medication worked and prevented her children from getting HIV. Because my first thought when she said that she tested positive was that like, oh no, like her kids are gonna have it now too. But then they revealed that, and I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, I thought that too. That
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a success story for sure. And it just shows like the simplest thing can make like the most amazing impact for sure. Okay. Anything else about the video? I'm gonna try and get my thing to scroll down. Like I said, I really don't want to take up too much of Alexis and Katie's time. So if there's time at the end, we'll come back to it, but I do want to make sure they have the time for their content as well. So this is like, again, the introduction to the crash course. I've sent the link in the chat. It'll be in the newsletter, and we'll also send it in the GroupMe. So you'll have access to it. And yeah, like I said, if there's time at the end, we'll come back to it. But now I will kind of give it back to Alexis and Katie for their planned parts.
All right. Hi. That might. Okay. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the fundraising chair. But basically, I'm going to a webinar tomorrow night with like the rest of PIH Engage to talk about like our fundraising push for this year and to like get the crowd change or whatever website we're using this year started. So like next week is going to be like our big fundraising meeting once I like go to that webinar and get all the updates and stuff. But thanks to Aya's lovely stickers, we're going to work on trying to like get that set up like this weekend sometime soon so we can like push both those out together next week. So it should be exciting times to harass all your family's friends to buy some stickers and to start like raising some money. So yeah, that's all the fundraising updates, but next week will be more on all that. All right, and then today, Alexis and I are going to talk a little bit about the global health curriculum. And today we were focusing on the topic of racism, and this is Partners in Health. This is part of like their education and stuff that they're working on with everything relating to racism, all that stuff. So these are like the main points that they have for their, what is it called? This is like one of the learning objectives related to this. So we're gonna talk about like I'm gonna talk about the first couple ones today. We're just gonna briefly overview this, obviously, because it's like we could go really deep into this. But part of Partners in Health, they want to make sure that we're updated. All members understand like that part of fighting for healthcare for all is also dealing with systemic racism and dealing with all the other issues that have come from like the systems and why we have to do the work we do. So basically the points that they're talking about is how racism, slavery, and colonialism affect the lived experience of people of color and in the US and globally, and then how systemic racism is manifested in both individual attitudes and behaviors, as well as through formal policies and practices throughout the US history and today. And then again, more about systemic racism, how imperial powers have actually plundered colonies, how the world economic system was designed over hundreds of years to enrich a small portion of humanity at the expense of the vast majority, and then how people participate often unknowingly in racism and benefit from colonialism. So we're gonna talk about the first, just like introduce the first couple ones, because again, we can go way into this, talk more about it. But we're gonna watch this video about, I don't know if you want to click the link, but it's explaining, we don't have to watch the whole thing either because it's 8 minutes, but it's basically explaining how the U.S. medical system is still like affected by slavery and what effects that has had.
Manhattan. There's a bronze statue of a doctor named James Marion Sims, whose brilliant achievement carried the fame of American surgery throughout the entire world. He's the guy who created the vaginal speculum, an instrument gynecologists use for examination. He pioneered the surgical repair for fistula, a complication from childbirth, and became known as the father of modern gynecology. But that brilliant achievement was the result of a series of excruciating experimental surgeries that he conducted on enslaved women. In a lot of ways, Sims epitomizes the story of American medicine for Black women. It's a system that's failing them to this day. From infant mortality to life expectancy, the racial disparities in healthcare are staggering. The gulf between Black and white might be widest when we look at maternal mortality, with Black women 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with pregnancy or birth than white women. And that divide can be traced back to doctors like Sims, who contributed to a long, largely overlooked history of institutional racism in medicine.
Trying to understand a historical problem without knowing its history is like trying to treat a patient without eliciting a thorough medical history. You're doomed to failure.
That's Harriet Washington, a medical ethicist and author who chronicled the intersection of race and medicine in her book, Medical Apartheid. While many of the stark racial disparities in healthcare can be attributed to environmental and economic factors like access to good healthcare, studies show that minority patients tend to receive a lower quality of care than non-minorities, even when they have the same types of health insurance or the same ability to pay for care.
As African Americans, we've been abused for so long, consistently by the system. Why should we trust it? Why should we go to when ill? And that's iatrophobia. That's a fear of the healer. Inculcated by the behavior of those healers, unfortunately.
It starts with slavery. Doctors relied on slave owners for financial stability. They accompanied plantation masters to auctions to verify the fitness of slaves and were called in to treat sick slaves to protect their owners' investments. In 1807, Congress abolished the importation of slaves and in turn pushed Black women to have more children, to essentially breed slaves. Founding father Thomas Jefferson later wrote, "I consider a woman who brings a child every 2 years as more profitable than the best man on the farm." Around the 1830s, the abolitionist movement led to the rise of what was called Negro medicine, or efforts to identify Black inferiority to justify slavery. And there were polygenists who tried to use both science and the Bible to find proof that races evolved from different origins. The 1830s also marked the beginning of recorded experimentation on Black women's bodies. One doctor performed experimental C-sections on slaves. Another one perfected the dangerous ovariotomy, or removal of an ovary by testing the procedure on slave women. In fact, half the original articles in the 1836 Southern Medical and Surgical Journal dealt with experiments on Black people. And then, of course, there was James Marion Sims, whose reputation is etched in history and on that statue in Central Park. Between 1845 and 1849, Sims began performing experimental surgeries on a 17-year-old slave named Anarcha. He eventually performed 30 operations on Anarcha and more surgeries on about 11 other female slaves. When his male colleagues could no longer bear to assist him in inflicting pain on the women, the slaves took turns restraining one another. Yet paintings depicting Sims, Anarcha, and other slave women presented a subdued version of his experiments. Even though anesthesia was introduced in 1846, Sims chose not to use it for his experimentation with slaves. His practices echoed one of the most prevalent and dangerous beliefs in medicine at the time, that Black people did not feel pain or anxiety. This book from 1851, titled The Natural History of Human Species, claimed the American dark races bear with indifference tortures insupportable to a white man. Studies released as recently as last year demonstrate that Black people are less likely to be treated for pain, particularly in the ER. There's even one from a children's hospital that found the same to be true for kids. And just this year, Pearson Education, a leading educational publisher, issued an apology and recalled nursing textbooks that included racist stereotypes, like this section that said Black people often report higher pain intensity than other cultures.
Well, what does it mean when you say that someone doesn't feel pain? Among other things, you're speaking about their humanity. These are all part of that suite of beliefs emanating from the 19th century that we still have not shaken off, despite all our knowledge and sophistication. They're deeply ingrained.
Doctors like Sims might fit the Dr. Frankenstein stereotype, but they weren't outliers. Historically, Southern doctors who used Black bodies for troubling experiments were the norm.
It's a very common question. How can we judge our forebears? You know, those guys in the 18th century who practiced medicine in a way that appalls us today. And we think, how could you do that? I did not judge the practitioners based on our own ethics. I judged them based on the ethics of their time. It was not acceptable back then. We just did not hear from the people who protested against it.
After the Civil War ended, the 1900s brought a wave of immigrants to the U.S. It sparked a race panic and coincided with the birth of the American eugenics movement. One of the movement's key objectives was to reduce the childbearing potential of the poor and disabled. Leaders included birth control pioneer and Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger, who eventually devised the controversial Negro Project, or family planning centers that pushed birth control in the Black South. It was a project that even garnered support from W.E.B. Du Bois, a founder of the NAACP, who wrote that Black people bred carelessly and disastrously. By the mid-1930s, more than half the states passed pro-sterilization laws, and often sterilization was forced. In 1961, future civil rights leader Fannie Lou Hamer went to the hospital to have a tumor removed, but was subjected to a hysterectomy without consent. The procedure, which rendered women infertile without their knowledge, was so common in the South that Hamer is said to have dubbed it the Mississippi appendectomy.
African American babies were no longer economically valuable, and African Americans themselves had gone from being a resource to a nuisance.
In June of 1973, the SPLC uncovered 100 to 150,000 cases of women who had been sterilized with federal funds in Alabama. Half the women were Black. In recent decades, women of color continue to be exposed to dubious reproductive health programs. In December 1990, the FDA approved a contraceptive called Norplant, and it was selectively marketed to Black teenagers in Baltimore schools.
You know, one of the current birth control methods now in the United States is Norplant.
Northland fans like David Duke, the former KKK Grand Wizard, even introduced legislation to give women on welfare an annual reward of $100 if they agreed to get Northland.
It's time we start to encourage welfare mothers to be responsible.
That bill never passed, but the implant ignited a debate on whether long-term contraception, like Northland that lasted 5 years, could be used as a form of social engineering when pushed to specific communities. Today, as we continue to lose Black mothers at alarming rates, a deeper look at the past may be a good step towards creating a more equitable healthcare system. Hi guys, thanks for watching. Of course, there's a lot more to the history of how the US medical system has mistreated people of color than we could fit in the video. Everything from the Tuskegee experiments to Jim Crow laws segregating hospitals. But we hope it starts to give some context to the racial disparities we see in medicine today. ProPublica has been reporting on the disparities in maternal mortality in the US and how it's the most dangerous industrialized country in which to give birth. Check out that feature piece in the link below. And we're seeking your help in understanding the problem. So if you nearly died during pregnancy or you know someone who died due to childbirth-related complications, then check out that link in the
All right, thank you. So yeah, that video I thought was really interesting. Obviously, really, really horrifying also. But I thought it was like really good to explain how like the remnants of racism and slavery are still like seen today and in the U.S. and like still thinking about like maternal mortality and infant mortality rates in Ohio, how those are still like disproportionately affecting people of color, women of color, and so. That video was like it was like talking about healthcare here. A lot of us want to go into healthcare fields and just explaining like just the immense disparities and horrifying things that have been done, and to show that like the effects and remnants of racism and slavery are still obviously very prevalent today. So that was, again, just like scratching the surface at that topic. And then the next thing I have is something about, this is just an article that we can like kind of skim over, but we can send a link out to you guys. But this is, again, addressing systemic racism. This is also relating to healthcare. And I thought like a couple interesting parts of it. This is explaining why the United States doesn't have universal healthcare. It's basically also explaining a lot of when slavery became, when slavery was ended, how this just like set up a bunch of bad laws and unjust things that happened, and how we don't have a lot of doctors of color because of laws that were set up back when these laws were being made, and just all sorts of stuff like that. So this is a really interesting article, and as part of the 1619 project, that's also, we can send out about this, but this is again explaining more about systemic racism and how it affects healthcare, how it still affects the US today and the world today. But yeah, so you want to check that out. So this is just kind of Alexis and I we're talking about this part. And we're going to do Alexis has a little activity that's going to explain about privilege, which kind of links into like us thinking about our privilege or whatever, and how that compares, how that relates to the global health curriculum that Paris Health has presented. And if any of you have more questions or anything, feel free to like reach out. Again, this is barely scratching the surface. There's a ton of resources, so we can continue to like have this conversation each time, because obviously it's really important. I know watching that video about the doctor, like I was horrified that even happens, and that video was very scary and not good. So all right, go to the next slide.
Okay, so based off of what Julie just like showed us and whatever the videos and stuff, I want you guys to identify privileges that you consider salient. So something that you notice that you have, or maybe something that you like don't have, something that's important to you, something like that. And you could even also focus on like the effects of racism on our society, both the United States and internationally. So we have a word cloud. We've done one before, but if you guys don't remember, you're gonna put this link in, and it's gonna pop up a screen with like places for you to type in. So I just want you to type up, and again, any privileges that you consider salient, any effects, any information based off the video that Katie just showed us that you think you want to share, and I'll pull up the word cloud for you guys all to see like what everybody else is sharing. Go back one, and then pull the. I could share the word cloud if you want to let me share my screen. And the word cloud link for you guys is in the chat box if you guys.
I think you can share, Alexis, if you want to try. Sorry if I keep going through the slides.
You need to unshare yours first, I think.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. And oh no. Okay. So as you guys talk, you'll see them pop up. Is the link working? Some really good stuff in here. Can you hear me? Yeah. Give it like another minute or two, and then we'll go through some of these and do a little discussion based off. Right. You guys can keep typing stuff, and we'll just start a discussion. So, Julie, how do I actually? Should I just pull up my screen? Want me to pull up on mine, or do you want to? Okay, let's go back. Okay. Good? Okay, so I want you guys to think a little bit, like while you were typing, I could pull the, oh my god, this is so confusing, I don't know how you do this. I could pull the cloud back up for you guys to think about while we're, you know what, let's do this. So you can see both at once. There we go. Okay, so this is our word cloud we made. I love it. So I want you guys to think a little bit about these questions while we're looking at it. So I knew I had to share. Feel free to share or not, whatever. So I want you to think of, do you think it's easier to think of the privileges that you do have or the privileges that you don't have? And like same thing goes for like, I think it's easier to think of privileges that like some people do have or like lack of access compared to having access to education. Like how do you word it? Do you word it as what you do have or what you don't? Something you realized from somebody else's response, like what made you think, what brought a topic that you didn't really think about before, and you didn't really realize like that was a factor that it's because of a factor as it is in healthcare or not. And then what factor on our word cloud do you think is the most relevant to PIH and like healthcare in general? And then finally, what is acknowledging and understanding, why is acknowledging and understanding our own privilege important when engaging with global health work and with PIH? Like why is it important for us to understand our own privilege, whatever, coming from America and anything else, any of the other privileges you mentioned? Why is it important to realize, accept, and then like use that information going forward, especially when global work? So this is our word cloud, and you can go back. I'll leave the questions up too. I'll go flip back and forth, but feel free to just shout out any like thoughts or anything you have based on our word cloud, maybe based off what you shared, based off someone else shared, anything like that.
I think the distrust in like the system or the distrust in like the doctors is a big one that I hadn't thought of before as like something that like a lot of other groups of people are affected by adversely. And that's obviously I never thought about like being like mistreated, like how being mistreated or like being worried about like how to word this properly. But like with the video that we just showed, how like people of that group may be more like wary of going to the doctor, obviously, because if there's certain like the history that there is there. Sorry, my brain is like not working today, but I think that's what I never like really thought about for myself, and that's probably like because of my privilege, and I think that's a big one, and it's especially relevant in the US with the disparities we have with race still in medicine. And then also I think just like resources to find doctors and insurance are like the biggest barriers in the US, and then like in other countries like we've seen with From Mountains Beyond Mountains, just like overall access to a hospital, or like in Sierra Leone having electricity at night to have like a C-section at night, stuff like that. It's like wealth and access, and those are the big ones that I think a lot, I don't know, I was not thinking about that one, but
Anybody have anything else they want to add?
I think food deserts was interesting to me too, because you don't always see that as like a component of racism. So I thought that was an interesting point that someone contributed.
I totally agree. I think a big thing when I was reading all these responses, which are also like thought-provoking, you don't really realize how one thing affects the other. You know, you don't really think about how racism or systemic racism, like any of that stuff, you don't really think how it could affect every aspect of your life, not only from just access to food, healthcare, all that kind of stuff, but it's like different traditions, different everything. So it's just really amazing to like be able to understand that, and then it makes you way more educated and way more understanding to other people, I think. So I think that by looking at all these things like ignorance, prejudice, all these things, and realizing that it does exist, and realizing that you want to find ways to minimize them in our society in order to, and then in the long run, this will lead to better access to things like education, doctors, healthcare, health insurance. So I think that medicine, I think it's really interesting to think that how some of these factors, like by fixing these I don't want to say short-term factors, but fixing some factors will lead to like such systemic change across the board with all different.
It has a ripple effect. Like
exactly.
one thing will affect the
exactly,
other.
like leading to income, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. So it just emphasizes the importance, I think, not only in just PIH work, but just work in general, like regardless. I think it's really just important to realize the effect that one thing has on another. Anybody else have anything they want to share? You can go back to the question too if you guys want.
I found the biased ideas of beauty an interesting one that someone put.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reminds me, it's not exactly the same thing, but it reminds me almost of, if you want to relate it to healthcare, like how a lot of like diagrams in the doctor's office might be more based around like Western ideas of like what people look like. So a lot of like diagrams might have a white person instead of like thinking about a like more neutral like figure to showcase, if that makes sense. Like if you think about, I don't know, like the doctor's office, and if they have like, you know, like a diagram of body, it's like,
agree.
yeah. So I thought that was like really interesting, and it just made me think of that.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And like, you just like don't realize like the effect that these things have on the rest of, you know what I mean? You don't realize that, like how any of these concepts play such a major role in like aspects of your life, like education, things like education and healthcare, that you don't think how that relates to beauty. You know what I mean? You don't think like how does one relate to the other, but like they are all connected and they are all based off the same access and all that, and distrust and all that kind of stuff. So it really is so fascinating to see how they're all connected and how they all relate, and how if you reduce one, you could reduce them all almost, you know? So I think that's a really good point, that something as seemingly so not related to healthcare and PIH, like the biased ideas of beauty, it so does, you know, because it really does. If you reduce one and you change one, then you could change more and change the bigger ones.
I feel like it's not an accident that like multiple people put education, and I feel like that is really important because that's something that like everyone involved needs, and like people who are in a position with lots of privilege need to be educated on all of these effects, and on how our system is, like how there are so many disparities and things like that, and we need to learn like what that's like for people, and kind of like in like the last question, like how would it affect our work. I think if you come from a position of privilege, you have to be I don't know, I guess just really like ready to listen and like seek to understand, and take the time to get to know people. And because even if you have good intentions going in, like it's really difficult to understand like what like underprivileged like groups are going through. And so I think education is important for the people in privilege, but then also the people who have been underprivileged and are like get the negative side of all these disparities. Education is something that they don't get like access to, and something that they need more of. And so I think really important to health and educating people on health, and giving people that are stuck in these like disparities the education that they need is like one of the most important things that we can like give people. So I think like in different ways, everyone needs education, and that's like one of the most important things.
Definitely. And you can relate education back to healthcare by saying like health literacy and all that kind of stuff. Like it really does go hand in hand, you know, like people with higher education are more likely to seek medical attention or get the care they need. It really is so connected. So that's a really, really good point. And I totally agree why so many people mention education, you know. Another thing that I noticed while I was looking was that inequitable distribution and socially dominant group, I think these two go hand in hand, because like the distribution of resources in society like really does lead to dominance over others and minorities. So I like how these ideas came together, and I like the idea. I like how you guys have talked about these ideas and explained the importance of realizing that these do exist and these are problems in our society. I really do think the first step is realizing that it is happening, and how like, and then we could go on to reduce them and change the way things are. So by just realizing that this is happening and that this is affecting other aspects of our lives, like education, like income, like healthcare, like everything, housing security, it's a great one. So I think it's really just interesting to again to think how everything interacts and relates to each other. Anybody have anything else they want to add?
I actually just have a question. I thought it was really interesting that religious was put here. That's like not something I really thought about before, and I was just really curious to hear like if you're comfortable sharing like what made you think of it and like how you see that being tied in with privilege and inequity. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I put that because today one of my English classes we were talking about this book that was it was set in a polio epidemic from like the 1940s, but that was during World War II, and we were talking about how even though the U.S. has seemed to be very like we're inclusive and like great and everything like back in like before like the World War II era, World War I, whatever, how there was a lot of so much like hate towards Jewish people, towards like Italian immigrants, like all different groups got discriminated in the US, and there was a lot of like deep-seated anti-Semitic thoughts, and there obviously like still are today, but I thought that was interesting. I was thinking about that today, like just acknowledging that like obviously like in the US like the Christian whatever is kind of more, that's never really been, you had many barriers as like other religions. So I thought like that was a different privilege to acknowledge too, especially like what we're talking about today with like there's so many other religions that have been like persecuted or for whatever, and like even say with the US we're still fighting to separate from the Christian values we were like founded on and stuff, that it's like kind of like the fallback, and that's, you know, not how it should be. So
yeah, I think it also goes back to education too. Like you would never have known any of this if you didn't learn it in class, and you would never have been able to be exposed to these ideas and this connection if you wasn't for this class. So I again just think that it all goes back to education, and the more you know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those things where it's so reflected off your education level.
Yeah, because I like honestly, I mean, I grew up like I went to Catholic school my whole life, and like I never learned about like all the other like, I mean, like I think we all kind of, US history is super like painted all pretty, and it's really not learning about, it's like not, and there's so many people that, and it's still present today, like all of these feelings of like it's just sad. But yeah, and again I never would have learned that point from my class and all that jazz, and it all links back together. So very interesting discussions.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was a good one. Any last minute thoughts? No? Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. So these were the discussion posts. We did that. Julie?
Yeah. So I just have, this is something that I kind of picked up on today. So Partners in Health has been sending out a lot of updates because there's a lot going on in the network right now. So first question, I didn't really put on the slide, but did anyone get a chance to call their representatives or Representative Beatty? I know I saw some people fill out the Google form, but like I'd love to hear if you did, like how it went, like, and just kind of like some feedback, because it was like a real life advocacy action. I thought it was cool. And if you don't want to share, that's okay. Okay, well, I called and the first person I spoke with like tried to get me, like he didn't really care to hear what I had to say, and I was like, excuse me, you're going to listen. And then the second young woman I spoke to, she was super like receptive and she was cool. So we'll see what happens. I know our coach also called for us too, so she's looking out for us. So that was just like an update on that front. Also, we have secured an advisor for our club. Yay! Super excited. I had a meeting with Professor Samuel Clark today. He is in sociology, and I think his other discipline is like public health, but he's done a lot of really interesting work with COVID and like mortality rates, but he's also like super focused in sociology, so he'll be our advisor. I'm so pumped about it. We finally are like making progress, so that's great. And then this is like the most important one is that I put on the slide. So on October 22nd, we've got the Meet the Founders event that's being hosted by Partners in Health, where Dr. Farmer, Ophelia Dahl, and Dr. Kim will be speaking, and I'm honestly like beyond ecstatic. I'm so excited. I'm literally like busting at the seams. And in an email that was sent out, Nick Seymour, who is amazing, suggested that we watch Bending the Arc before the seminar to get like the most out of it. And in conjunction with that, one of the goals for our semester is to like have a Bending the Arc screening. So, and it's online, so we'd be able to like have a Zoom meeting and literally do exactly what we're doing, where we share the screen and share the audio and like have the movie screened online, which I think is amazing with like COVID and everything, to be able to have it like in a form like this. So I put a question mark behind the date because it's kind of short notice, but like not really. It's 2 weeks from today. So I was thinking, next week we've got our fundraising meeting with Katie, and I have stickers. I'm so excited. But I was thinking like that gives us 2 weeks where we could advertise the event, talk to our people in our network, reach out like, hey, we're showing this thing. And this is normally something that like the community building lead, like Alexis would kind of organize, but I literally just saw it today, so I haven't had time to like speak with her about it. So she'll probably be taking over if she has like the time. I don't want to push everything on her. But yeah, so this is something that we could definitely do, but it's something I wanted to like talk about as a team and see how you guys feel about it. And yeah, so that was something that, yeah. Oh, so then I'll explain the links really quickly and then we can like talk about it. So the register here is like for us, and like also we can forward it to anyone if you want to register for the event. So, like I registered for it. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you click on this, you register for it, and then ProQuest is just like a database with a bunch of resources. So it's got like a bunch of articles written by the founders, links to books, links to videos, like just a bunch of information that you can check out. And then this is, we are able to submit like a question from our team that'll be like a 20-second video. And so if you guys have questions that you'd like to submit, we can only submit one because there's like 72 chapters. And so if you guys like have a question, I figured we could like have a week to think about it, because like thinking of it on the fly would be kind of difficult. Send it to myself or any of the leads, and then we could vote on it next week. I think that's like an opportunity we should definitely take advantage of. So this is where we'll put the question when we're finalized with it. But yeah, so what are you guys' thoughts on trying to get that event put together by 2 weeks from now? So instead of a meeting, we would have this event basically.
So do you want to sort of explain what it is a little bit?
What did you say?
You want to explain what it is like a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sorry, squirrel brain. So Bending the Arc is a documentary that was created by Partners in Health and the founders, or co-founders, I guess, talking about the origins of Partners in Health, kind of just like an overarching, like, if you could think of like an informational session, but in a documentary about just who they are, what they're about, where they started, their story, and then really talking about like health disparities and like global health. So it's a cinematic version of Partners in Health and what it does. I haven't seen it myself. It just became available online like a week ago. So prior to that, it was only available at certain libraries, at certain universities, or like in literal CD forms. And I was like, I don't own a CD player. So, but yeah, so that's like the gist of it. It's basically Partners in Health like documentary. I've heard it's really good. I'm super excited to watch it. So that, yeah, my apologies for not explaining. And I put the questions here so I would remember to talk about it, and I totally like didn't. But yeah.
We could also, maybe we could make a poll in the group chat, and you guys could all, in the group me, and everyone could just vote when they think. Our goal would be, since this is like, it is more an event than a meeting, our goal would be for each of you to bring people with you just to watch with us, and then we'll just talk about the documentary. It's basically going to be like the videos we show you, but longer, and like more like, I guess, more like general overarch of the entire program, like how it started and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you could just like, it could be anyone, someone you think is interested, would be interested in PIH, or someone like one of your roommates that you want to educate more, anything like that. There's really no rules about who you could bring or who you should bring, but it's kind of just up to you and up to your friends and who's available and stuff. So we will send out a few options for dates, and whichever one has the most dates, we'll do. And then instead of a meeting, we will be showing Bending the Arc. So maybe we could even start a little bit earlier so we get out earlier. We could brainstorm ideas to make it the most flexible for you guys. But it'd be a really nice activity, and it's just something that like PIH likes us to do. So
you can make it into like a little party, like have your force all your roommates to watch it. Good social thing.
Good snacks.
Yeah, go make some snacks. Have fun with it. So
we could do like a
more information about that too I'll also look to see how long it is, and then also have some possible dates, and you guys could just vote.
Yeah, I was gonna say like what was Katie said and Alexis, like we could make it like more interactive, so like we could have like who brought like the most interesting looking snack, or like who brought like the best snack or something, just to like make it more than just like, oh, we're gonna log on and like watch this together. And we can make it like our own thing too. So but yeah, that's a great idea, Alexis, to have like the dates and we'll vote on it. Let's see. Okay, so yeah. There's only 3 minutes left for going back to the crash course. I don't really want to like rush you guys through that. I've sent the link in the GroupMe for the crash course. I also sent the link for the setting up one-on-ones with myself, Alexis, or Katie. So if you guys want to get more involved in the club, if you want to like kind of become more involved in a certain team, we've got advocacy, fundraising, and community building education. So again, like all of us would love to talk to all of you guys. And yeah, anything else from the team leads? Yeah, fundraising is cool. It really is.
There's really no one on my team, so I'm feeling a little lonely. So like if you also are interested in fundraising, it's cool. So you can hit me up. That's my plea.
Yeah.
I'm also going to mention what I always say at the end of each meeting: keep recruiting and keep finding people you think are going to be interested. We need to keep building our membership so that we can make the biggest impact. So again, just keep thinking about people who would be interested. Friends, classmates is a big one, especially if you're a science major. Neighbors, everything. Just think about anyone you think would be interested, reach out to them. Worst thing that happens is they say no, or I'm too busy this semester, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't hurt to reach out to more people. So just keep doing that and keep spreading the word about who we are and what we do, and that they should get involved.
Yes. Thank you, Alexis. Yes. I also sent the link to the GroupMe in the chat. If you guys aren't in the GroupMe yet, please join. But yeah, like Alexis said, keep recruiting every single day, all the time, forever. We're always an open club accepting new members. So, but yeah, that's like just about time. I don't have anything else. I'm sorry we didn't get to do Rosebud Thorn this week. That's okay. We had more important conversations, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, thanks so much for coming, you guys. It's really nice seeing familiar faces and like new faces every once in a while. This is always like my favorite day of the week. So also our word cloud like came out so good. Can we talk about that? Like, can we make a sticker of our word clouds? I'm here for it. All right, but yeah, that's a wrap on my end. And if anyone else wants to add anything, please do.
Thank you. Good conversations. And if anybody, there's a lot of links to, again, I just barely scratched the surface of all of that stuff. And I am not the most, I don't know everything about it, obviously. So there's a lot more resources like on their website, and reach out to any of us, and a lot of good videos and stuff. But hope everyone has a good night, and thanks for coming, and join fundraising also if you want.
Bye guys, yes. Thank you.
Thanks guys. Have a good rest of your week. Bye. Alexis, can you stay for a sec? I wanna, and Katie, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because like I said, the email that I saw with the vending the ARC information, I think I closed it out. I just want to.
I'm sending you the word cloud right now for the email.
Okay, cool. Where is it? Because like obviously like I want to make sure like I don't step on anyone's like toes or anything, but I'd